Have you ever heard a sound so new, so full of energy, that it just makes you want to move? Well, that's exactly the feeling that took over the city of New Orleans more than 100 years ago. It was the birth of a totally revolutionary sound, jazz. So let's dive in and find out how this incredible music was born.
All right, here's our roadmap. First, we'll explore the city where it all started. Then, we'll break down the musical recipe that created jazz. After that, we'll get into the magic of making music up on the spot. We'll track how jazz left its hometown and spread across America, and finally, we'll look at what makes it such a special American art form.
So first stop, a city of sound. You gotta ask, why New Orleans? What was it about this one specific place that made it the perfect lab for creating a whole new style of music?
Well, New Orleans was basically this incredible cultural gumbo. It was a true melting pot, mixing French, Spanish, and African traditions like nowhere else. It was also a huge port city, so sounds and people from all over the globe were constantly flowing in and out. You had these powerful, ancient rhythms from West Africa coming from a place called Congo Square. And at the same time, you had these formal European-style brass bands marching in every parade. All these sounds were just bumping into each other on the streets. And get this, music was so woven into life there, it was even a huge part of death. The jazz funeral is the perfect example. On the way to the cemetery, the band plays these slow, really sad hymns to honor the person who passed. But after the burial, the whole mood flips. The music gets loud, fast, and super joyful. It becomes a celebration of that person's life. So you see, in New Orleans, music wasn't just for concerts. It was for, well, everything.
So that brings us to our next section, the musical recipe. With all these different sounds swirling around, what were the actual ingredients that got mixed together to create the unique flavor we call jazz? The first big ingredient you gotta know about is ragtime. It was a super popular style of piano music back then. You've probably heard it before. It's that upbeat, kind of choppy music you hear in old silent movies. It was everywhere. Now, the thing that made ragtime sound so cool was a technique called syncopation. It sounds technical, I know, but it's pretty simple. Think about a steady beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Syncopation is all about hitting the notes in between those main beats, on the offbeats. It puts the accents in surprising places, which gives the music this bouncy, ragged feeling. And that exciting rhythm? It's absolutely key to jazz.
But here's where jazz musicians really took things to the next level. See, ragtime was almost always written down on sheet music, and you were supposed to play it exactly as written. Jazz players, though, they took those same tunes, but they played them from memory. They added their own personality, their own flair, and just made it their own. You could say ragtime was the framework, but jazz was the living, breathing performance inside.
And that idea of adding your own flair leads us right into maybe the most important, most revolutionary part of jazz, playing without a page. We're talking about the magic of improvisation.
Improvisation is literally the heart of jazz. It's all about creating music right there, in the moment. The musicians know the basic tune, but from there, they just take off, inventing their own new melodies and rhythms on the spot. What's so cool about this is that it means no two performances are ever exactly the same. Every single time they played, it was a one-of-a-kind creation.
Okay, but you might be thinking, hold on, if everyone in the band is just making stuff up, how does it not turn into a complete, chaotic mess? It's a really good question.
Well, the secret is something called collective improvisation. The best way to think about it is like a conversation. Each instrument has a job to do. The trumpet or the cornet is the leader. It plays the main melody so everyone knows where they are. The clarinet is like the decorator. It's weaving all these fast, high notes in and around the melody. And the trombone? It's the foundation, laying down these low, sliding notes. They're all making things up, but they're also listening really closely to each other, responding and creating something together.
So this incredible new music is born. But how did it break out of New Orleans and grab the attention of the whole country? That's what we're going to get into in Section 4, Jazz Leaves Home. So in the beginning, that musical conversation we just talked about was the main event. Jazz was all about the sound of the whole band playing together. But then, one guy, a musician from New Orleans, came along and pretty much single-handedly changed the game. His name was Louis Armstrong, and he made jazz all about the star soloist. Louis Armstrong wasn't just good, he was a musical genius. His playing was so powerful, so creative, and so full of personality that he basically invented the modern jazz solo. Suddenly, the most exciting part of the song was when one player stepped up to take the spotlight.
His recordings with his bands, the Hot 5 and Hot 7, became legendary. He became a global superstar and the first true ambassador for jazz music. At the same time, history gave jazz a huge push. For years, a lot of jazz musicians worked in a famous nightlife area in New Orleans called Storyville. But in 1917, the whole district got shut down. Just like that, tons of musicians were out of a job. So they started moving north to big cities like Chicago to find work, and of course they brought their music with them. Pretty soon, Chicago became the new capital of jazz.
And here's the other huge thing that happened in 1917. The very first jazz record was made. This was an absolute game changer. For the first time ever, you didn't have to be in New Orleans to hear this music. Thanks to recording technology, anyone, anywhere in the country could listen to jazz, and it created a whole new generation of fans and musicians.
All right, let's bring it all home. Our final section, an American art form. Why is this music, which started in one city over a century ago, still so important today?
We have to remember that first and foremost, jazz was social music. This was music for people to dance to. The rhythms were so infectious, the energy was so high, you couldn't help but tap your feet. It was exciting, it was for young people, and it created this electric connection between the band and the dancers. It was basically the pop music of its time.
And that legacy is so alive today. You can still go to places in New Orleans like Preservation Hall and hear this music played with the same energy it had 100 years ago. It's celebrated at huge festivals and it's taught in schools. But its real influence is even deeper. Those core ideas of jazz, that swinging rhythm and that spirit of improvisation, they're in the DNA of almost every type of popular music that came after it, from rock and roll all the way to hip-hop.
Which brings us to our final thought. What is it that makes jazz a uniquely American art form? Well, when you think about it, its story is kind of the American story. It's a blend of different cultures coming together, it's a celebration of individual freedom inside a community, and it's got this spirit of always trying something new. Jazz isn't just music. It's proof that when you mix different worlds together, you can create something totally new, powerful, and beautiful.